part of doing this as a live stream is if anyone says, hey, well, what if you held it like this or something of the sort? So if you want me to sit here and hold this and try different things, by all means, got time to do that. That's what this is about too. So if anyone's got any suggestions for what we've got here in my hands, let me know and I can try to act that out and see maybe we can find a hand grip that works specifically for this pistol.
Just show us again what it looks like to grip it with two hands and use the set trigger. So
this is one hand here, right? And this is the set trigger where it comes back almost to your other hand. There's a couple different ones I showed in the video depending on who was using the pistol. So what I did is I tried to have my hand kind of around it. I still tried to do it where I was holding the pistol with one hand, so I'm like fully supported, and then kind of had my other hand around it. So there is that way. The other option is to kind of go for more of like the teacup handle where you have pistol just pretty much setting in your non-dominant hand. It's not really doing anything for recoil, but it's providing some initial stability. There's that option. You can still kind of have your hand up and around it a little bit too, to try to come up and grab it that way, right? And then there was also the other where you could use the set trigger with your other hand, and that provides a little bit more. It puts your non-dominant hand in a little bit of a better place. The only issue with that is The only issue with that is then you kind of got to have your other thumb back to kind of get the leverage you need. Because I'm also thinking in terms of more of the modern pistol grip where people have one hand on top of the other. You got your thumb side by side trying to get as much grip on that pistol as possible, right? But those were kind of the different ways that we were trying to use and trying to get a grip on it. But I think there's definitely opportunity maybe with, instead of having your hand as far up, still trying to incorporate maybe a little bit more of the teacup style, but still trying to do as much of a grip instead of just kind of having it set more down, trying to bring that hand and wrap your thumb up around, so that way you still got more or less, between your thumb and your pointer finger, room for the set trigger to kind of move back there, right? Something of the sort like that. Maybe an option. I don't feel like I'm getting a lot of stability out of my left hand here, though, kind of like with the teacup style. But it does allow me to get my thumb up there and have a little bit of a better grip on it. But by all means, if you guys are maybe seeing something I'm not, or have any suggestions for that, now's the time to maybe talk about that and see, is there something that we can do and maybe solve this from just a more or less what we're doing with our hands rather than going through an entire design change. But yeah, if I have both my hands here and I try to pull that back, I can't get that trigger back because my other finger's in the way. There's only room to have one finger.
I know this wouldn't solve the set trigger problem, but it almost looks like you could benefit from a slightly longer handle.
Back here? Yeah. Yeah. Well, so I do have a pretty large hand, right? And my hand does kind of come down here to the end comfortably for my right hand, which, if you're taking this into consideration for just shooting this with one hand. But even in terms of like if I try to bring my other hand around, I've still got a lot of my hand that's kind of sitting underneath, even if I were to just say have this gripped more like a conventional pistol grip. If there was more room down here, I would have a little bit more stability. Because usually what you'll see is, your pistol grips will usually have, sometimes you'll have like extended ones for your pinky and stuff of the sort, so you can get that better grip, and you'll have it where that's, here I'm fighting my trigger guard, just kind of because I'm coming more off at an angle rather than vertical. I'm fighting more of my trigger guard with my other hand, so I'm not able to get full contact on that as much as I could, right? And so my hand's kind of wrapping around. So if this was like a little bit further extended, that would allow my non-dominant supporting hand to have a little bit more stability on that too. Thoughts on that? Comments? Any other ideas?
How does it feel to you to grip it with two hands with the set trigger folded up?
So if I'm not using the set trigger, right, and I'm using two hands, it actually feels pretty good, especially when I can get my other thumb up here. If I can get both my thumbs up here and I'm holding that, personally that feels pretty good. But to your comment, my hand is kind of sitting a little further down here, right? Like it's not like my palm is completely gripping there. I think it's pretty much where my pinky comes into the palm of my hand. Like all this area down here is pretty much hanging off, and it's kind of just almost trying to wrap around the bottom of the pistol, right? Other than that, it feels pretty good. I feel like I can have some pretty good stability on this. Like I can hold it very well. And I feel like I'll have a good handle on it for the recoil that I'd be anticipating. But I definitely think it could be better, right? So like if you're shooting this without the set trigger, I think you'll be fine. But at that point, if you're shooting it without the set trigger, then you've got a very heavy double action trigger. Emphasis on the very heavy aspect of it too, because like I said, you're going to have it was like 15 pounds or something of the sort like that, which can work on trying to bring that down, but not sure if that's going to necessarily be feasible without fully understanding all of the logistics of this mechanism and what forces are needed in each of like the springs and retention clips and stuff of the sort like that to be able to make that operate successfully. If the set trigger wasn't taken into consideration, I don't think it would be an issue. I think you could hold it pretty well, but then you're dealing with a 15-pound trigger pull. I could sit here and I could pull this and you can see how the set trigger still kind of wraps around, right? So the set trigger being folded up isn't an issue at all. Maybe that's something where people say, hey, using the set trigger really isn't that big of a concern for me. If it's there, so be it. If not, well, maybe, I can just have it folded up or not there at all or whatever. And having the better grip and just dealing with a heavy trigger pull is fine by them. That could be potentially an answer. But anyone I talk to, if a trigger pull is more than a couple ounces, I hear people complaining about it. Oh, my factory trigger was this and this and that, and I put a different trigger in there. I changed the springs or I did something of the sort, right? Like there's always people trying to make their trigger pull better. And so having something where you're going from like, maybe a couple ounces to a pound or so to up to 15 pounds makes it a lot less appealing. It makes it where it's like, man, if I go out there and I shoot that without a set trigger, that is that's a workout on my hand and I can only shoot that a couple times. For this pistol, I think there's really two aspects to it in terms of the marketing aspect. And the first one being is this is a piece of history, right? It's a very interesting piece. Take the Colt single action army, right? It's not necessarily as practical compared to double action revolvers in today's standards, but it's really cool. It has historical significance, stuff of the sort like that, right? So people would get it for that aspect. But I think this actually does have more practical applications in terms of more of like a sportsman or hunting aspect too. So I really do want to try to push for having this still be a little bit more on the practical side, where it's not something where people are like, oh man, I went out and I shot this and this just has like an ungodly trigger in it and the mechanism is so ancient and complex and there's nothing I can do about it, so they just throw it back in their closet and write a bad review about it or something of the sort, right? Like I'm trying to avoid that as much as possible. I understand that keeping with the initial design, there's going to be some limitations to that, but I want to try to minimize that aspect of what would be coming to the market. So thoughts, questions, concerns, comments, tell me you hate it. Tell me I'm wasting my time. Let me know what you think.
Do you have a 3D printer where you could print like mock-ups of what the grips would be, that you could, instead of having it on a wood, just do like a 3D printed grip so we could see the difference?
So yes, I can do that and have them shown here, but you're still going to have, the metal component of this, because like these wooden grips are actually following the metal frame itself too. So like I could print something out and have it shown like that, but I don't know if that's going to do us any good in terms of visually seeing, oh, is that going to give us the clearance we need and stuff of the sort. I don't know if I would gain much more out of 3D printing, a grip that just kind of sits over here but doesn't...
Just 3D print the entire gun all over.
Right, and I first got to finish the entire modeling of that too. I am focusing more on the frame of it stuff first, and once that's done, then I can start, changing up, saying how do I want this to look, how do I want that to look, and stuff of the sort, and then I can do that. And I definitely think that's a possibility. And so going back to the other point that was made earlier, coming up with like some photoshopped concepts and designs and stuff of the sort that, we can all kind of talk about, pick through and say, hey, this is probably what's going to be our best case scenario. That's going to give us, maybe clearance. It's going to keep maybe to more of an original-esque design, something of the sort like that. And then once we have those identified, then that's what I can go and 3D print this receiver with this shaped pistol grip or with that shaped pistol grip and see how it comes out. And that's something where then we can get a functional like grip test of saying, yes, this fits the hand really well and decently, or no, this isn't going to work. I'm running into issues here, or there's not enough room, or there's, it's too bulky, or I can't reach the trigger or stuff of the sort like that, right? So I think that would be, once we nail down some concepts, can definitely do that in our 3D printing prototype phase, which is going to be a part of it too. After the design's done, there'll be 3D printing, then there'll be like a mock-up version for like testing functionality and stuff of the sort. And then after that, I'll make a version that's going to be with higher grade steel and stuff of the sort to be able to handle the loads and be able to proof test those to make sure that, it's safe to fire. Once.
Question.
Yeah, go ahead.
Talking about 3D printing, when are you going to make a ghost gun kit?
Okay. I mean, I could put like a little Casper and I'll have that be 3D printed on there. Does that count as a ghost gun? You know what? Boom. Ghost gun. What do you think? This kit is available for $99.99 if you want it right now. I take Venmo and Visa.
I don't know. That's too spooky of a ghost gun for me.
All right.
$66.6.
So a lot of good discussion today of stuff with what can we do with maybe the set trigger location, the draw of the trigger, how far that's going back, the different style of triggers if we use, say, flintlock type of double trigger, if there's room for that, if we could do something of the sort where we're using maybe more of your pure double action two-stage triggers of the sort, or if we change something with the shape of the pistol grip itself. And I definitely think those are all options to pursue and things to look into. And the correct answer may not be one of those, but maybe a combination of a lot of that, right? From where it stands and from what I've seen and messing around with this, I don't know if we're going to get anywhere with just trying to improve the way that we're holding the pistol. I don't think the grip is going to be anything better than what I've already shown. But other than that, I think that gives me a good place to start with trying some of the stuff with the designs and trying some of the stuff with the mechanisms and seeing what can be done to improve the functionality to make this just more user-friendly, right? Any other questions, comments, concerns? If not, we could cut this a little early too. There wasn't too much to really talk about with this. I just wanted to see what other people thought, if there was something that I wasn't seeing, and then also just kind of have a little bit of an open forum discussion. So if there's really nothing else about pistol grip and the trigger and how all that is user friendly, if there's any other questions anyone has about the project or what have you, I can answer those at this time.
I don't think I have any. I like the idea of the set trigger, especially being folding how it is. And so I think the best place to start would be with the grip, or maybe a combination of adjusting the grip and the angle like we talked about, or the length of the trigger pull. But otherwise, I don't have any more to say, I don't think.
I don't have anything.
Any other snarky comments, Scott?
I'll let you know if I come up with any more.
Surprised you're not asking for a flat face trigger, Scott.
Flat face trigger, you mean?
A flat face trigger.
I do love flat triggers. I'm obsessed with them.
Well, at least you didn't ask for a scope mount this time.
He wants a pick rail.
Top and bottom pick rail. We discussed that previously.
You want one on the side?
If I don't have my IR kit,
He wants M-lock
visible
on,
laser light,
he wants
and optics
M-lock
on
on
top.
He wants M-lock on the side so that he can put canted iron sights.
That just hurts. You gonna hold the gun sideways? Is that what you're gonna do? You're just gonna
Hold it at a 45-degree angle, not a 90-degree angle. And it wouldn't make sense to hold this gangster style. There's nothing being ejected until you open the action, so...
I mean, for the aesthetics of it. I mean, as long as, you know what, I don't care what you do with it. As long as you're carrying this with a monocle and a top hat, I think I'm okay. And you can have a scope and a tack light and a canted iron sight and have that thing just...
my cane.
And, oh, yep. My apologies, good sir. Your cane. Let's not forget that. You know what? That can be a gun too. Why not? I think they used to make those. I'll add that to
I'm too
my
poor to
list.
do any of that, though.
That's fair.
It's considered, I think, an AOW, and it's a pain in the butt to be able to have them.
It is. It is. I've looked at some of those other cool things like gun knives and gun rings and all those other cool little things that they used to have, and the gun canes. I was actually really looking at. I'm like, oh, that's really cool, and then put into the way they're classified is so stupid. So, all right. Well, if nothing else, we can go ahead and bring this to an end. Thank you, everyone, for showing up and being part of the discussion.